Is it the Wuhan Lab or not? As of April 2021, there have been over 130 million cases of COVID-19. The pandemic has already caused more than 2.8 million deaths. Currently, there are over 700,000 new cases every day and over 12,000 daily deaths worldwide. The disease originated in late 2019 in central China's Wuhan city, but up until today, the world is still struggling, not understanding how the global disaster began. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is trying to cover up the origin of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, making it impossible to have an authentic and independent international investigation into it. The effort to reveal the truth has even experienced more resistance from the CCP's partners outside China. It has long been speculated that the Wuhan Institute of Virology, WIV, also known as the Wuhan Lab, could be the source of the pandemic. Researchers at the lab have conducted extensive research on deadly bat viruses. They've also had a special emphasis on gain-of-function research on coronaviruses that theoretically can enable the deadly bat viruses to infect a new species, including humans. Biowarfare research is also conducted in the lab because the communist regime views this field as the future. Consequently, scientists in China are developing genetic and viral weapons. The World Health Organization, WHO, is the highest authority in coordinating responses to global health crises. But unfortunately, it is now under the control of the CCP, having become its coronavirus accomplice. Last year, the Trump administration moved to terminate the United States' relationship with the WHO over its mishandling of the pandemic in alignment with the CCP.
China has total control over the World Health Organization. We have detailed the reforms that it must make and engage with them directly, but they have refused to act. Because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms, we will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving, urgent global public health needs.
Over 1 year after the virus's outbreak, the WHO sponsored an investigation in Wuhan in early February this year. But the supposed fact-finding mission turned out to be merely a 2-week show orchestrated by the CCP. The WHO granted China veto power over which scientists participated, with those proposed by the US being all barred except for Peter Daszak. The 10-member team met with obstructions after their arrival. 2 members were denied entry into China due to visa issues, which Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying attributed to a misunderstanding. Chinese investigators were muzzled and barred from even dining with the foreign scientists. The international group had no access to raw lab data or medical records of the earliest patients and were blocked from any evidence that might suggest a lab leak. 26 scientists from the United States, France, Germany, and other nations signed an open letter discrediting the WHO mission. Rutgers University chemical biology professor Richard Ebright called it a charade. On Tuesday, March 30th, 2 days before April Fool's Day, the WHO eventually released the long-awaited report on the virus's origin. The report was put together by a team of Chinese and foreign experts, based on findings from their 2-week guided tour in Wuhan. Unsurprisingly, the report left the question of how the virus entered the population unanswered, but concluded the possibility of it being leaked from the Wuhan lab as being extremely unlikely.
The findings suggest that the laboratory incident hypothesis is extremely unlikely.
Apparently, to reach such a conclusion was what the CCP exploited the WHO for. The joint WHO-China report on the virus's origins was leaked Monday. The CCP's fingerprints could be found all over it. Responses to the report had started even before its official release, widely criticizing it for having little credibility. Atlantic Council senior fellow and WHO advisor Jamie Metzel said on Fox's The Ingraham Angle that the report is not credible.
So there's 2 points. One is, why is it not credible? People feel this must be a World Health Organization investigation. It's not. It's not an investigation. And the World Health Organization isn't doing it. It's an independent committee with their Chinese government counterparts. So anything that they come out with is going to be a compromise, a consensus between this committee and the Chinese government. It could be possible that COVID-19 began through a zoonotic jump through animal hosts. It also could very well be possible that it comes from an accidental lab leak. There's a lot of evidence that suggests, it's all circumstantial, that is a very, very real possibility. That the virus comes from horseshoe bats that are more than 1,000 miles away from Wuhan, but what Wuhan has is China's only level 4 virology institute that has the world's largest collection of bat coronaviruses, that was doing dangerous gain-of-function research with a spotty security record, and we have this massive Chinese cover-up that came afterwards.
It's common sense that if they really are innocent, China should have thrown their doors wide open for free interviews and investigations. But what was the reality? Mr. Metzel said,
it's the total opposite of that, because China is, and frankly, this joint committee is doing everything possible to explore this animal jump hypothesis. And the Chinese government is doing everything possible to destroy samples, to hide databases and other records. They've imprisoned journalists, and there's a universal gag order on Chinese scientists, making it impossible for them to say anything or write anything without prior approval about the origins of the pandemic.
Texas Representative Michael McCall, the lead Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, has heavily criticized the WHO as biased. He said in a statement, the WHO should have never allowed the Chinese Communist Party to have such a heavy hand in drafting this report. A report censored by the CCP is worse than no report at all, because it allows the CCP to continue to spread misinformation about the virus and cover up the role they played in allowing it to spread. Louisiana Republican and House Minority Whip Steve Scalise took to Twitter to say that the report was a joke, as the WHO was covering for China. Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, wrote on Twitter, "The WHO report is a sham continuation of the CCP-WHO disinformation campaign. It's why I recommended we leave WHO. Dr. Tedros collaborated with Xi to hide human-to-human transmission at a critical juncture. WIV remains the most likely source of the virus, and WHO is complicit." Governments of Australia, Canada, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Israel, Japan, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, South Korea, Slovenia, the United Kingdom, and the United States signed a statement questioning the integrity of the WHO China study on the CCP virus origin. They stated that it was significantly delayed and lacked access to complete original data and samples. The statement reads, "Together, we support a transparent and independent analysis and evaluation, free from interference and undue influence, of the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, we join in expressing shared concerns regarding the recent WHO-convened study in China." The 14-nation statement emphasized that scientific missions like these should be able to do their work under conditions that produce independent and objective recommendations and findings. In its editorial, The Wuhan Whitewash, the Wall Street Journal concluded that the WHO report is best understood as a whitewash heavily influenced by the Chinese Communist Party and Westerners with conflicts of interest. In regards to the most telling message in the report, the claim that it is extremely unlikely that the virus leaked from the WIV, the article says that enough is already known about the WIV to suggest the report lacks credibility. For example, as early as in 2018, U.S. officials had warned in diplomatic cables about safety and management issues at the WIV that could lead to a pandemic. That was especially troubling considering the gain-of-function research on coronaviruses the WIV was conducting. The State Department warned in a January fact sheet that WIV researchers had developed symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and common seasonal illnesses in autumn 2019. Moreover, the WIV has collaborated on publications and secret projects with China's military for years. The editorial pointed out that the WHO team is also compromised by conflicts of interest. Peter Daszak, a zoologist and president of EcoHealth Alliance, was the only CCP-approved American on the WHO team. He has collaborated with the WIV for years and supported gain-of-function research. As early as February 2020, Daszak helped coordinate a statement in The Lancet condemning conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin. Reportedly, even before the WHO released its report on their findings, Daszak said the White House should blindly accept their conclusion that it's highly unlikely the virus could have leaked from the WIV. A couple of days before the report was published, Dr. Robert Redfield, head of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, in the Trump era, said he believes the virus escaped from the WIV earlier than the official timeline of September or October of 2019.
I am a virologist. I have spent my life in virology. I do not believe this somehow came from a bat to a human, and at that moment in time, the virus that came to the human became one of the most infectious viruses that we know in humanity for human-to-human transmission. Normally when a pathogen goes from a zoonotic to human, it takes a while for it to figure out how to become more and more efficient in human-to-human transmission. I just don't think this makes biological sense. So I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out.
However, Robert Redfield was rebutted by Dr. Anthony Fauci, the current COVID-19 spokesman. Dr. Fauci is also the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. It is known that his institute has financed work at the Wuhan Lab and has particularly backed the gain-of-function research of the deadly virus. Obviously, Dr. Fauci's the wrong man to reassure the public about lab research on coronaviruses. Late Tuesday night, Peter Navarro, trade advisor in the White House under Trump, spoke on Fox News.
And basically, we had Fauci not only funding that lab with American taxpayer dollars, he authorized this thing called gain-of-function research. He allowed the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army, to genetically engineer a virus using gain-of-function.